Well, it all goes to show the instability that has rocked Russia as a result of the intervention in Ukraine. The Russian Federation has always relied on the privatization of force, private military companies to execute its foreign security and military operations. And so it was only going to be a matter of time when these forces basically, tried to go their way and challenge the power structure in Russia. So in a sense, what we're seeing in Russia was inevitable, and I don't think we've seen the end of it.
Paul, what has been the impact of the Wagner Group in the continent of Africa, and what's the future like for this group on the continent?
Well, there are three potential scenarios. The first scenario would be for Wagner forces in different African countries. They're operational in Mali, reportedly in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, in the Central African Republic, for them to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense and with the Russian Ministry of Defense, and for Putin to place them under different management. The second scenario would be for the Wagner forces to basically split between those that remain loyal to Prigozhin and those that accept to come under the control of the Russian state. That's the second scenario. The third scenario, which is plausible, would be for the Russian government to send its own forces into these African countries to take over what the Wagner Group has been, the functions the Wagner Group has been conducting. And all these three scenarios maintain high levels of instability. So it's going to affect the peace and security agenda in Africa. I think it would be important for the audience to recall that the African Union has taken a very strong stance against the use of mercenaries, and many African countries have legislation against mercenaries. So this is a very serious issue for African countries.
You mentioned that it's a serious issue, the Wagner Group, and then they have the Chinese experts there working with them. So what is the overall impact of these two groups operating on the continent?
Yes, Chinese security contractors, this has been the big elephant in the room. China certainly is following this issue very, very closely and learning lessons, many lessons from what has happened with Wagner. Because as you rightly say, there are many Chinese contractors that are active in the African security sector in different ways. Advising governments, providing surveillance equipment, protecting Chinese assets, and so on. And I think what the Chinese are going to look at very closely is the potential that these different groups, could decide to challenge, central authority. There's no guarantee, this is the problem of relying on paramilitary forces that exist on an auxiliary command structure outside the state. So China definitely is watching this issue very, very closely.
Paul, thank you very much. We'll keep an eye on this because it continues to develop. Paul Nantulya is a research specialist at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies.